the body as a temple and the individual person as the temple of God. There's something about that concept of that autos, self, autism, where you are aware of the self and you're caring for the self, being inherently a temple for God, where God has already programmed you with what you need. There's a reason why you love bananas or why you hate them. There is a reason why you love this particular kind of music but can't stand the other. When you indulge in the thing that keeps you and keeps you healthier, you're ultimately going down that track. Being able to be aware of what's best for you and go for it, and be aware of what's worst for you and avoid it, is you staying on the track of how God built you, how God built your mind, the person you are, and taking care of the specific kind of temple that the Most High God created you as individual God to be. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you are taking care of yourself, you are taking care of God. And when you're showing respect for yourself, you are showing respect to God, and whatever it is that is going on inside of you as the individual God, it is ultimately feeding into the purposes of the ultimate and most high creator God. Your very life's essence is inextricably connected, because it's not your life essence, it's God's life essence that lets you be. So it is God within. And when you take care of yourself, whether it be because you want somebody to leave your stuff alone, or because you want to consume the foods that don't make you feel sick, when you are choosing to consume whatever it is that brings you pleasure and brings you comfort and what is healthy, when you do that, and that is being processed by the God of individual self, it's going to be processed by the Almighty God. And these things are going to be record kept and processed, and they are going to feed into your destiny and what destiny you unlock. It's going to affect where you go, where you get in life. We're programmed in different ways as different beings, and autists are programmed to sort of inherently be able to take care of that God inside. We can have struggles, sicknesses, learn bad things. Believe me, I've been through the ringer with learning horrible things that I didn't believe in, but I was forced to do, because my choice was do this the way I've been forced, or suffer the consequences. And I chose not to suffer those specific consequences. I wanted to be able to sit here today or any previous day. So I made my choices, and I know how easy it is to get on the wrong track and not even believe in that track, but just to be on it because something is wrong. And I know how the misery of everything being wrong in your life can make you feel like you're sick because you're so miserable. In my case, I was miserable because everything was wrong. The wrong people around, the wrong experiences, living in the wrong place. That misery was my spirit screaming, no, you know this is wrong. Do not be here. Never get comfortable here. This is so bad that I will constantly scream misery and depression throughout every cell in your body so that you can never get comfortable in the wrong place. That's what it was with me when I was unhappy, when I was depressed. It was because the God in me was screaming at me constantly, never to feed into anything else, never to get comfortable in hate, never to get comfortable being hated, being mistreated, being threatened, being afraid to sleep, looking around every corner. That wasn't depression as a sickness in me. That was depression as God in me screaming, no, no, never, do not. And you know what happened as a result? I never got comfortable. I not only never got comfortable living in a sea of filth and hate, I developed an extreme level of awareness of exactly what that misery and that hate felt like, so that when I even see it for the rest of existence, not only will I recognize it, I will also deter myself from it. I will take another path. I will always remember every single moment when every cell in my human earthly body was screaming, no, don't get locked in the hate. Don't get comfortable in the hate. Don't accept the hate. That's why it's so loud. For me, it was proportional to how miserable anything was in any given moment. And I'm going to leave it at that. But my reaction to that was proportional to it. That was what happened when everything was violated, when everything was inherently violable, when nothing was sacred and no place was sacrosanct. Misery. And I think this is the gift that God has given us as autists, and I'm the autistic ADHDer. I'm trying to specify, I'm talking about ADHD, but from the perspective of being autistic, and it has to be different to be an holistic ADHDer. But I know us as autists and as autistic ADHDers, when we have something sacred or sacrosanct, it is because God in us is there for a reason, and it is doing everything to make us choose the thing that feeds us and feeds our ecosystem instead of anything that would reap it away and ruin it. We're not supposed to get comfortable in the things that harm us. When we lose it because something has been violated, like it was sacred or something, it's because something has been violated, like it was sacred or something. And so these are my thoughts, and this is how I have experienced my life on this subject, and I'm highly aware of it because I'm a specific person and I was made to be aware of it. It's not a question to me. I don't wonder why being autistic makes me so sensitive about things and I'm acting like something is sacred. Like, why are you getting, if people will say things like that, they'll be kind of snarky about it. They'll say, why are you getting so upset? I just touched your stuff. It's not like it's sacred. Actually, it is. And thank Almighty God that I am aware enough of my individual God that I am aware of that thing. And I'm not going to try to force that on anyone who can't see it, because there's no point. There's absolutely no point. A person can get something if and when they can get it. I can't make them. But I'll tell you what I can do is keep my Rubik's Cube over here from now on. Put my pen inside of a case from now on. Actually, what I used to do was I would carry a public pen. There was an incident where someone needed a pen, and I was the only one who had one. But it was, long story short, a really nice, solidly built, metal, reliably writing pen that was from a good company, and it was a lifelong type of purchase. You get it and you can have this thing forever and refill it forever. It was a birthday gift, something I had desired before that point, and it was kind of a special and very unusual type of purchase for me to have. So I asked for it for my birthday, and that was the only pen I had on me. I ended up having to hand this pen over to somebody. It was a weird experience. They needed to write a note. I was also the only one with paper, so I had paper inside of my planner. I handed them my planner so that they could write a phone number. And they wrote that phone number like they were signing an autograph across their own CD. It was on the they took, like, the planner page was a few inches by a few inches, like maybe 6 by 4. And instead of writing the phone number on one of the many lines across the page, they took my special, delightful, sacred pen and my beautiful, previously private planner that was only for me because it's my planner. That's how that works. And they wrote it across the page on the diagonal all the way in huge letters. I'm like, you just ruined. Planners work in a certain way. You have a certain amount of note pages inside. It's not usually very many. Sometimes you might have 2, 3, 4, you might have 8. They just wrote their number in such a grandiose and shocking way that it ruined an entire, like, the way you kind of have to parse it out. Oh, I can write this many notes this year. They just basically took up months of note-taking inside of my planner. And I just had to process that. And now my pen didn't feel sacred anymore because it's a random person X. And I'm not really sure I like their vibe either. So who knows what was with that. But it just had this weird energy all over it. And the planner page was ruined. I'm like, this can never happen again. From now on, I'm carrying a stack of cheap Post-it notes. You can write all over those babies however you want. Nobody is going to be like, we're not talking about Tomoegawa paper right here. So people like paper snobs who are into that particular kind of paper snobbery, you know what I'm talking about. We're not going to be handing them something like that and my special birthday pin that was once sacred and now feels dirtied and weirded out, and I'm just freaked out by the whole experience. I'm now going to carry Post-its, and I'm going to carry an extra pin that's just something random. I got something that was reasonably nice, but it was something that was not like, this is the pin that has culminated my entire life of needs in a pin up until this time. I had something else. Sometimes you have to have another thing or another place. I don't know how I started this. It's going to be interesting when I go back and listen to this video and I realize I'm telling the planner story forever. But quite frankly, it was the kind of experience in my life where I think I've known somewhere inside, since long before YouTube even entered into my personal lexicon, that one day I would find a way to tell the world what happened to my planner that day, and that it happened with my sacred pin. Sometimes you just need to have sacred something for you, like that one pin that I carried for myself, and then you need to have something like the extra pin that I bought in case anyone ever asked for a pin again. Next time somebody asked for a pin, I was so happy inside of myself. I was like, you know what, hold on, I've got just the thing for you. Boom, here's not my sacred pin, enjoy. It was fabulous. I felt so happy. It had come to fruition. I had protected my sacred pin. It could be anything, right? The world. Okay, my battery just died, but what I'm trying to say now, I think I'm in a wrong frame, but I'm not going to fix it. I'm just going to move on. What I'm trying to say is that's one of those situations in life, that person with that pin, I was mindful enough to just not react in an obvious way to what was happening. The whole time it was happening, it felt like one hit after the other of pure craziness from the fact that no one else had a pin. And we're talking about somebody in a profession where what you do is you give information about what you do, you give quote type stuff, you have information. I would have expected that person to have a pin. The whole experience, I'm trying to say, just felt like hit after hit after hit. Talking about somebody where you would expect business cards or the capacity to take notes, something like a pencil and a book in your pocket, whatever it is. And then there was another person who was like the always prepared person, and I would have expected them to have it, not just because of that, but also I know you were in possession of a checkbook and you're constantly talking about, you know, being able to use it. That was back in the day. The checkbook was there, you need to be able to fill it out, and it was somebody else who doesn't like using everybody else's pins and using the one at the checkout lane and all that stuff. So I was shocked. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm just standing there quietly knowing I have my one sacred pin. I did not want this to be happening to me, but when it did happen, I chose not to react to it because I had already learned over the decades, the previous decades in my life, if I say something or my face reads the fact that I'm shocked and horrified by the way this person just wrote this note and messed up my planner, it's going to suddenly be a reaction. It could be like, it could have been the person who would have been like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think about that. And then they'd never do it again. But I also had a lot of encounters with people who get a little tiny bit completely histrionic about things, and all of a sudden they turn it into a thing. They'll always point it out. Now I'm like, sometimes people have disproportionate reactions, right? And then I didn't want to once again be the crazy person who gets mentioned as being, you know, I lost it because I responded to my planner and my pen like what? It was a pen, a piece of paper. It's not like it's sacred, that kind of thing, where they're thinking I shouldn't be so upset and I shouldn't be bothered by it. And I told you the story behind the pin, so that could kind of potentially bring in some sympathy for it, and a lot of people could probably relate, but I wasn't giving that story to somebody random in life, and that's what it was, somebody random in life who I wasn't talking to. The person I was with was talking to them. I knew that the conversation wasn't going to end up going anywhere because, again, it's one of those contracting, giving, you know, like sales pitch moments. And now, for this person I don't know, this situation that means nothing, a thing that, and it didn't go anywhere, but a thing that's probably never going to be, in fact, I probably still have that note in that planner to this day. And it's probably been 2 decades. So it's still sitting in there, still ruining that planner. So that mark still lives in my life, which is a perfect metaphor for when somebody does something like that. You just kind of learn, okay, this made the sacred thing no longer feel sacred. Well, I still have, I'm sure, that piece of paper somewhere in that planner, because I never, like, you know, reusable, and I never refilled that section after that year. It's kind of what ends up happening somewhere inside when somebody needs your pen, or they need to, like, they're going to pick up your drink. And I grew up in that generation where kids would just pick up your soda and be like, can I have a drink? And they've already got it to their lips. That's not how you ask permission. You ask permission before you're actively doing the thing. I would be like, yeah, you can have a drink. And then they'd be like, okay. They drink and slop and slobber in my mind. And sometimes I could see it happening. And so then they try to hand it back to me. And I'm like, I don't want to get too gross here, but one particular time it was like the mouth has moisture and the can has moisture. Those things are going to combine. And one particular time this person took it and it was already there while they're asking. And I'm like, sure, you can drink it because you're already in the process. And then when they moved the can from their mouth, the moisture from their mouth, I could still see. I don't want to be gross, but I could see. And so at that point, they're like, I'm going to give this back to you. And I, inside of myself, was like, I can't believe this is happening right now. I can't tell you, I was so into drinking that one particular soda, and it was one of my favorite kinds of sodas as a child. It was a safe food, and so it was my safe, sacred thing. But the very instant all of that happened and I saw what was going on when they moved that can away from their lips, I lost interest in that soda so quickly. I don't remember the moment when it happened. I just remember in that moment it was now their soda. In fact, I said that to them. I was like, you can have it. And they were all happy, like, oh, cool, thanks. And it was a wonderful fix for a situation. I don't want it anymore, so you just go ahead and dispose of it yourself. You dispose of it right down your gullet where you want it to be anyway. You clearly needed to have it there. You already took it, right? I will just give that thing away. I don't know how the soda thing happened. Now I'm thinking about that. But this is one of those things where I was just learning in life. Okay, people just kind of take your stuff. So then what happened? I became the person where it's like, I could go into a million subjects on just the subject of this and stuff. Because sometimes you're not a person who will ever again sit your soda down comfortably on a table a few inches away from you. Now when I'm drinking a drink, I keep it physically near my person. Because now I know that there are people who might literally already have it up and getting contaminated before they even ask you if they can have some. And I would love for you not to have any of my drink, because frankly, I don't like the concept that you're drinking from something I've already contaminated. It goes both ways. It's just, if you're okay with that, I guess, I mean, that's obviously your personal decision. So I'm not gonna, I wasn't gonna tell her, what's wrong with you, and smack the soda out of her hand and then explain how bacteria works. That would have been hilarious. I was just watching a movie, and I'm not through it yet, but I was watching a movie where somebody got upset and smacked something out of the person's hand, so now I'm cracking up and losing my train of thought. But there are things you learn, you change. I will now keep the soda in my hand, or I'll keep it so physically far away from people. You're going to get near my soda, I'm going to pick my soda up, and I'm going to move to another place with my sacred soda and my sacrosanct can. It changes you in some way. And just like that planner where I just realized that decades later I will still have this note. And every time I opened that planner and saw that ruined part of my notes section, and I'm like, I can't even, I was trying to figure it out, can I write around? Because 90% of the page, 90? No, maybe 80% of the page was unused, but it just, on the diagonal, all the way across, I left it alone. So every single time I needed to take a note, I then had to flip past it in a weird place and go elsewhere. It was just completely bizarre. So I changed. What happens, you changed your behavior. You change your behavior. It changes you in some place. And just like the note, you realize, okay, this wrote a memory inside of me, and it adjusted the way I now approach life. And it might be about a planner. It might be about your body. Some people, there's a song, Tony Braxton, and it has a line that says, give my back. And the concept is I'm processing who you are now. And now that I see that what we had wasn't sacred, now that it has been violated, I want to take back what was sacred that I gave to you. So she's like, I gave you my I want to take my back. You can't take an experience back. You can't necessarily do that. But you can move forward in such a way that you can become, you and your can become sacrosanct again. Sometimes it's a learning experience. And sometimes you need to know what it feels like personally to be violated and to find out whether or not the hard way that situation will be violated, so you can decide how you're going to move forward with what you consider to be sacred. But ultimately, I think when it comes down to it, it's all just an issue of us as autists being built differently. Autos and self. Self, body, temple of God, mind, where God resides. The self as God. Do you not know you are gods? Everywhere you go, there's a concept of the God within. And the God within is there because the grand, that's why there's a delineation between God and the Almighty God, or I am and the great I am. And it's the great I am that allows you to be I am. And in this moment in my life, thankfully, I finally reclaimed the place where I am. And I am sacrosanct. And so will my life be. So I carry an extra pen and I keep mine. You don't drink out of my drink. And I believe that one day I will have the perfect living situation where no one is going to have an issue with me being sacred and knowing it. And there's not really a challenge for me knowing that I'm sacred. Once I finally remembered all over again, I had to go through the ringer and end up full circle in this life. Being born, just being aware of self and taking care of self, going through everything and having to fight to rip that back. I now remember I am. And so I decided maybe I could talk to somebody else who might need to remember that or be affirmed in it today. So with that being said, if you like it or think anybody will get help out of the video, please share it. Please like it, share the video, subscribe to my channel, to ring the notification bell or ticket or whatever they call it now. Snap that bell down hard so that you know when I upload again, because only God knows. And it's going to have to be the Most High God, because this God has got no idea anymore. And remember the God within. However you process that. Be sacred today. That's about it. Bye now. Remain sacrosanct. Amen.